Okay, so in the past video, I talked about the WebSocket event bus and the processing pipeline. That was the part one of the Polymarket trading bot deep dive. So that was basically all of this part of the architecture. So from the config layer to the data sources, pipeline adapters, and then processing. And then I talked about the event bus. So if you haven't seen that video already, I would suggest to see that first before you are watching this one, because in this video, I'll be explaining some changes that I've done to the architecture, but also our signal layer. And then this part over here, which is also a new, kind of a new feature. And then I'm gonna, in kind of, big picture stuff, explain the strategy layer and then the execution layer. There's a lot of details in this. I will probably make another part 3 video about that. For example, how the orders on Polymarket is handled, and stuff like that. So just to reiterate, we have some data sources, which is, for example, the Bitcoin price and the Polymarket market channel that sends us raw data in our trading bot, right? So we have the raw data that's passed over to some pipeline adapters, basically just adapters that tags this raw data so we can use it in our system. You can see how we have different tags, different data that we're going to use later in our system, but we also have the raw message. Then we have the processing unit that takes basically the raw data from the tagged message and then process it to a uniform event that we then call processed event, that's then going to be pushed to the event bus, and the event bus basically pushes this event out to all the different modules that have subscribed to the event bus. In this video, I'll be talking about the signal layer. So the signal layer can be many different signals that we want our strategies to subscribe to. So a very classic trading, strategy in stock trading is like looking at the, moving averages and stuff like that. So a moving average could be, the average price over a given period crosses another moving average over a time period. So that's a signal that we can create in our signal layer. So we then have our signal subscribing to a data source through the event bus. And then when it's produced a signal, it then pushes it over to the event bus again, and then that distributes the signal to other areas of our trading bot that has subscribed to it. In our case, it's going to be the strategy layer. The strategy layer, we have different strategies that, says, all right, for example, strategy 1 have signal A and B. So that will then subscribe to those signals, and the event bus basically just manages all of that. So that's kind of a recap of what we talked about. So to take a little bit deeper talk about the signal layer and the strategy layer, I have to refer to the code. This file here is just an example file that demonstrates how I kind of put all these different layers together. So you can see how we start by initializing the event bus. So that's the main parts here, right? The event bus. And then we create a signal producer. So the signal producer is, you can see how we defined it over here. In this case, it's the exponential moving average signal producer that takes basically takes a base class that have different methods that we require it to implement. And then you can see how we have the event bus, and then we have the method subscribe, and then the producer, the signal producer, and then the signal producer has an on event method. So what happens here is we create a signal producer that we call it. We subscribe that to the event bus, and then it gets like a callback method, an on event callback method. So the event bus knows what method to call when the signal produces a signal, basically. And then we basically do the same with other kind of signals. So we can provision different kinds of signals that we want to use in our strategies, basically. And then a new thing that I have added to the architecture is 2 different things: a position tracker and then a pending order tracker. And they are very similar, but they serve different purposes. The pending order tracker, it's kind of in the name. So when we produce an action, So you can see here in our strategy layer, they can produce actions. So in the moment it creates an action, it will actually omit an event to the event bus that then create the pending order tracker. And this responsibility, the responsibility of the pending order tracker, is to basically just monitor the state of the action that we omitted. Because when we do it, well, we don't know, it's kind of a void, it's kind of a black box. We don't exactly know what happens over at Polymarket or any other market for that matter. So that's why this one will have the responsibility of basically monitoring through the events that we get from the market over here. So we have the user channel WebSockets, and I'll be explaining a little bit more about this in this video, because this is also something I changed, but more on that just in a moment. And then when that happens, that it gets notifications from the WebSocket that, hey, now the order has been filled. It omits a similar event that the position tracker subscribes to, and then the position tracker actually tracks our actual positions that has been filled. So you can see how we do it kind of in a similar, actually we do it in a similar way like the signal producer. The signal producer produces events, and then we also have it with the position tracker. The position tracker is also subscribed to the event bus that you can see here we do it, and then we also have an on event method. And you can see here, if we go over to this position tracker, you can see here how we have the on event, and then we have a self.handle trade. Okay, and you can see how we look for specifically for the trade event, and then we mark it in our state. So we have a kind of a state management of the position here. And then you can see here later we basically construct a position in our code, and then we omit their event. You can see here how we do self.eventBus.publish position. And that happens when we actually have the trade filled in this example here. Again, this is just an example. It's not the final code. I'm still working on this just to make it robust. And actually now I'm in the process of testing this out, doing live trades, just to make sure that it's actually working as intended. Because we kind of want to have state in our bot to be able to monitor, pending orders, and then also actual orders that we then later can sell or redeem or whatever we want to do with them. And then I mentioned that I've done some changes up here. So before I had actually these two being like one part. Now I've actually separated it between tradable markets and then just data sources, because I think there's a very big distinction between this. So for example, a tradable market in our case is Polymarket, but what if we want to connect this trading bot to Kalshi or Opinion? Or what if we want to trade just regular crypto markets? Because this is potentially possible in this trading bot, so we don't restrict ourselves just to one market. And maybe we want to do an arbitrage between several different markets. Let's say we want to subscribe to both Kalshi and Polymarket. Look for a similar event, because now they have 15-minute Bitcoin markets on both Kalshi and Polymarket. So there might be some, arbitrage opportunities there. So in order to, capitalize on those arbitrage opportunities, we need to be able to connect several different markets. And that's why I've made the distinction between the markets and then the data sources. So the way I've done it is I've kind of made market adapters that defines standard methods in our code base that different markets has to conform with. You can see how I've created this market adapter. And this market adapter is what a Polymarket adapter would inherit from. And this one defines which kind of methods that the adapter should basically create. And that allows rest of the trading bot to easily hook into these methods and then execute trades, for example. So for example, we have a discover markets, and we have a get market method, and we have also a subscribe order book, and a subscribe ticker, and a subscribe trade, and so on. And then of course, more important, we have something like a place order. We have a cancel order. We have a get balance. and we have all other kinds of events that we want all the markets to basically implement. Because if they don't implement this, the trading bot will not work. And at this stage, I'm not sure if this is the final version. This is kind of a bare bones version of the market adapter, I think. And so again, as I said, I'm still in the process of testing this out. So there's probably going to be more changes to this. And then if we look at the Polymarket market adapter, you can see here how it inherits from the market adapter that I just showed you before. And then it actually implements the methods to do these methods. So for example, the discover markets. All right, it then implements the discover markets the way that Polymarket expects it, right? So we hook into the different API calls and stuff like that they have on Polymarket. And again, we do this for all the different methods, like how do we place an order, how do we cancel an order, and so on and so forth. And then we also have the translate ticker. So the translate ticker basically just takes the Polymarket data and then it transforms it over to a uniform event type that we can use in our bot. So for example, Polymarket, they use best ask, best bid, site, size, price, and asset ID. Well, Calcia might use some other words and Opinion might use a completely different word. So we need to be able to figure this out in these methods and then omit a standard event. And this goes back to the processing, right? The processing unit that we have down here, which kind of is uniform now in this here, where we take the data and then we make it uniform so we can use it in the rest of our bot. But besides that, the pipeline adapters and the data sources kind of remains the same. That's basically it for now. So the last remaining thing that I need to implement to make this all work is the execution layer, which is basically what I've done already. And now I'm just testing it out, and I'm testing this out together with the position tracker and pending order tracker to make sure that actually works correctly. And then I'm trying to implement a front end so it's going to be easier to manage the strategies through a nice web interface instead of using the terminal. So that's kind of the next step. And in the next video, I will be explaining a little bit more about the order flow of on Polymarket, how that happens when we actually place live orders. But I'll get more into details about that later. So if you haven't already joined our Discord server, I would highly suggest you to do so, because we already have a lot of members. We have already now, you can see here, we have 100 online, and then we have, you can see here, we have 492 offline. So we have more than 600 members in the Discord server, and you see how we have members joining all the time. We have Julian here, joined just a few minutes ago, so it's like several people every hour is joining every single day, and we only have this Discord up and running for like, I think it's around 2 days now, and we have like more than 600 members join. So that's really nice, and we have a lot of nice conversations in the general chats, where we have a lot of people talking, and we have other channels coming also. So it's a really good place to get alpha on Polymarket and prediction markets in general. And we have a lot of new things coming along here the coming weeks. So I would highly suggest you to join if you are serious about doing Polymarket trading and Polymarket trading bots, and also Calcia and opinion trading bots. Everybody is welcome. It's called Poly Traders, that you can see here, Poly Traders. And I have made sure to leave an invite link down below in the description. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in Polymarket trading bots. So until next time, see you and have a good one. Bye.